It's a Romeo and Juliet story of teenage romance ending in tragedy. 16-year-old Emma Walker was an honor student and cheerleader on a championship-winning high school squad.
A story of young high school love, ending in heartbreak and murder, with a little bit of suicide attempts in between. This is the tragic story of Emma Walker, whose life was taken all too soon from her. Join us as we uncover the shocking and tragic story in this video. On Friday nights in the fall at Central High School in Knoxville, Tennessee, the football stadium lights up and two teams battle on the field while fans dressed in red and black cheer for their home team, the Bobcats. Every Friday, the whole school is excited to see how we perform. It's the center of our school life, said Seth Armstrong, a recent graduate and former team player. It's really thrilling. At the forefront of the crowd, the marching band and cheerleaders keep the energy up. Back in 2014, a new member joined the cheerleading squad, Emma Walker, a spirited 14-year-old freshman. Emma was really dedicated to cheerleading, said Lauren Hutton, a senior who became good friends with Emma. She truly enjoyed it. It was something she was passionate about. She loved leading and being part of the excitement during football games. During that early autumn, Emma Walker's cheerleading performances on the sidelines caught the attention of an older student known as Number 8, Riley Gall, who was a junior and a wide receiver for Central High. Riley Gall was raised by his mother and grandparents, and he was a good student who also enjoyed playing video games. His friends saw him as someone who liked to make jokes, and he didn't fit the typical jock stereotype. He had a bit of a nerdy side, said Zach Green, one of Emma's friends. He was a bit reserved. If you looked from the outside, you'd think he was just a regular guy. When Emma's parents first met Riley Gall, they had a positive impression of him. He seemed like a nice young man, like the boy next door, Emma's mother, Jill Walker, said. He was polite and friendly when we first met him. He was easy to like. Mark Walker, Emma Walker's father, thought Riley Gall was a good-looking and polite young man. He allowed them to spend time together with supervision, often at their house or meeting up after football games for meals and such. Emma Walker's friends noticed her initial happiness with Gall. Her social media posts started showing many pictures of them paddleboarding, hugging, and taking playful selfies. In one of her posts, Emma wrote, "Look how lucky I am." At the start, their relationship seemed pretty normal, as observed by Keegan Lyle, one of Emma's close friends. "Gall didn't talk to us, her friends, very much," Keegan said. "I just thought, oh, he's just shy." It felt okay, but after a while, we started getting worried. Emma's friends became concerned as they noticed that Gall seemed to want Emma to spend time only with him and not with others. He began controlling her, deciding what she could do and what activities she could be a part of, Keegan explained. He became more possessive and clingy towards her, and he wouldn't allow her to do certain things, added Lauren Hutton. In the following 2 years, Walker and Gall appear to be like that classic high school couple, the type that frequently breaks up and then gets back together. Their friends witnessed very dramatic arguments between them, often occurring through text messages or Snapchat posts. Jill Walker mentioned that Gall always had something to say about her daughter's clothing choices, advising her on what to wear or not. It got to a point where Jill had to talk to Emma about it. Later, according to Lauren Hutton, the relationship between the two became intense. Gall started waiting for Walker outside the supermarket where she worked. He would just wait outside for hours, Hutton explained. Lyle said friends tried to tell Walker that they were concerned about how Gall treated her, but she just sort of ignored it, Lyle said. She did her own thing. According to Walker's friends, Gall's behavior turned aggressive. He sent her hurtful Snapchat messages like, "I hate you, I hate everything about you, and you're the biggest mean person I've ever met." One message in particular worried Walker's mother. Gall wrote, "You're dead to me. I'll check the obituary. You." On one occasion, we saw a message that said, "I'll see your name in the obituary," Jill Walker recalled. "We asked him about it, and he said, 'I was just really mad.' That's when more warning signs started showing." Walker's parents decided to stop Gall from coming to their house and took away their daughter's cell phone in an attempt to prevent them from communicating. However, this didn't work. Riley gave Emma an iPad Touch, and she texted him using the Wi-Fi, explained Seth Armstrong, a friend of Walker's. For every hurtful message Gall sent, there was also a quick apology. One message from Gall said, "Emma, I'm sorry for how I act." Another message stated, "I love you more than I can express in words." Jill Walker, along with her husband, had advised their daughter to break up with Gall multiple times. However, they found that as they clashed with their teenager about it, Emma began to side more with Gall. He had a way of making her feel like he was the only one who understood her. By the time fall of 2016 rolled around, Emma Walker and Gall were still a couple. Gall, who had graduated, was now an 18-year-old freshman at a nearby college. Meanwhile, Emma was in her junior year of high school. Despite her parents' efforts to separate them, their rocky relationship persisted. Around Halloween that same year, Emma's parents decided to ground her. She wasn't allowed to leave the house, except for school and cheerleading practice. They kept a close watch on her movements, and surprisingly, it seemed to have a positive effect. Emma started acting like her old self again, noted her father, Mark Walker. She would come out of her room, have dinner with us, and engage in conversations. Emma even sent a text to her friend Keegan Lyle saying that she and Gall were done for good. She realized that she deserved better, Lyle recalled. "We were all so relieved and excited. We had been waiting for this moment." However, Gall didn't handle the breakup well. In his college dorm room, he ingested a large number of Vicodin pills and combined them with alcohol in a suicide attempt, and even his friends noticed his changing moods. He would be off by himself, seeming down, and saying things like, "I'm so depressed, I want to harm myself." You know, things like that, Gall's friend Alex McCarty recalled. It seemed like he was asking for help in his own way. Then on Friday, November 18th, 2016, Walker got permission to go to a gathering at a friend's house. Around 11:30 p.m. that night, her classmate Zach Green came to the house where they were hanging out. Walker took him aside and shared that she had been getting strange text messages from an unfamiliar number. "Zach, I'm receiving these really weird texts that say, 'Come outside alone if you don't want someone you love to get hurt,'" Green recounted. She showed him her phone to prove it. "Go to your car with your keys," read one text. Then another said, "Go alone." Yet another said, "I have someone you care about. If you don't do as I say, I'll harm them." Green mentioned that Walker believed it might be a prank by one of Gall's friends. She texted back, mentioning the possibility of calling the police. However, the text messages took a darker turn, Green explained. "If you want to hear him cry and scream, give him a call," read one message. Green stated that Walker began pleading with him for assistance until she finally told him, "Zach, listen, they said they left Riley outside." He and Walker ventured outside, and indeed, they found a body lying face down in a ditch near the house, illuminated by the streetlight. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was Gall. As they approached Gall, he raised his head with a bewildered expression, his demeanor appearing confused. Emma questioned him, asking why he was there, to which he responded incoherently. Gall claimed not to know how he arrived, suggesting he had been kidnapped and dropped off without understanding his surroundings. His actions seemed odd, holding his head as if he had been hit. Emma felt uneasy and uncertain about the situation. She conveyed her desire for him to leave, mentioning their recent breakup. Gall seemed disheartened and walked away by himself. He contacted his friend Noah Walton, claiming he had been abducted. However, Walton doubted his story, describing Gall's voice as fatigued or tearful. Gall alleged that he had been attacked, his car taken, and he was placed in a van with no knowledge of his whereabouts. He insisted Walton not involve the police and displayed reluctance toward calling 911. None of Emma's friends reported the supposed kidnapping to the authorities that night. The following morning, Emma returned home and texted her friends about a stranger at her doorstep. She expressed fear, feeling threatened by the individual dressed in black who rang her doorbell persistently. She also reached out to Gaul with mixed feelings, expressing both dislike and a need for his presence. Gaul responded, offering assistance and hurrying to reach her. When Emma failed to meet her mother as planned that morning, Jill Walker returned home to find Emma and Gaul in the front yard. Jill requested Gaul's departure, reminding him of his prohibition from the property. Although visibly shaken, Emma suspected the stranger might have been a burglar or a potential stalker. Jill, however, questioned the repeated involvement of Gaul in such incidents. Jill expressed her doubts to Emma, suggesting that Gaul's actions were an exaggerated attempt to gain her attention. Concerned for her safety, Jill and her family closely monitored Emma's movements, even observing her while she worked. By Sunday night, the situation appeared to have normalized at the Walker residence. Emma engaged in a conversation with her friend Keegan Lyle about a homework assignment before retiring for the night, a little after midnight. Around 6 a.m. on Monday, November 21st, 2016, Jill Walker entered her daughter's room, but couldn't wake her up. Emma Walker's lifeless state became evident, and Jill immediately called 911 for help. Police were dispatched to the Walker residence. Initially considered a possible suicide, the presence of a bullet hole in the wall suggested otherwise. It was a small hole about the size of a pen. Additionally, 2 shell casings were found outside, indicating that 2 shots had been fired from the outside into Emma's bedroom. She had been fatally shot in the head, with 1 bullet hitting behind her left ear and the other lodging in her pillow. Investigations began, and Emma's friends and family were interviewed. The name Riley Gaul emerged repeatedly, given his prior relationship with Emma and the way he treated her. Gaul expressed his grief on social media, sharing tweets and a lengthy Facebook post mourning Emma. His repetitive declarations of love raised suspicions. Following Emma's death, Gaul's friends disclosed a secret he had shared with them regarding his fear for his life. He had shown a stolen gun to a friend out of fear for his safety. Detectives questioned Gaul about his whereabouts over the past few days. During the interrogation, Gaul referred to Emma as the girl and exhibited an emotionless demeanor. He recounted attempting to contact Emma, but their interactions were strained. Gaul's actions and words during the interview seemed calculated and detached. Gaul described his feelings of distress after the breakup, spending time at his grandparents' house and later breaking down in his car at college. Despite his account of emotional turmoil, his demeanor remained distant and rehearsed, prompting detectives to be skeptical of his sincerity. Detectives learned that Riley Gaul, an acquaintance of Emma's, had shown a gun to his friend Alex McCarty, who later shared this information with the police. Gaul's grandfather had reported the gun missing from his car, and detectives inquired about it during their questioning of Gaul. During the questioning, Gaul denied knowledge of the gun's whereabouts and refuted showing it to McCarty. He also denied asking his friend Noah Walton about removing fingerprints from a gun. Gaul became defensive when detectives asked to examine his cell phone and questioned whether he was a suspect. Following Gaul's departure from the sheriff's office, he messaged McCarty, expressing concern about McCarty's disclosure of the gun to the police and urging his friends not to cooperate with law enforcement. Walton and McCarty, believing that Gaul was withholding the truth, collaborated with the police in a sting operation to retrieve the potential murder weapon. Equipped with microphones, a transmitter, and a concealed video camera, the 2 teens assisted in recovering evidence, including the gun, gloves, and black clothing. This operation led to Gaul's arrest. At his trial, his defense attorney argued that Gall had fired the gun in an attempt to scare Emma and gain her attention, asserting that he never intended to cause harm. Gall was found guilty of first-degree murder, stalking, theft, reckless endangerment, and possession of a firearm during a dangerous felony. He was sentenced to life in prison.
The first defined offense, charging the defendant with first-degree murder. Did the jury reach a verdict?
Yes, we did.
What is your verdict?
Guilty.
Emma's mother, Jill Walker, hopes that her daughter's tragic story can serve as a warning to others about the dangers of controlling and tumultuous relationships. She emphasizes the importance of recognizing signs of emotional and controlling behavior in relationships and encourages kindness towards others. In memory of Emma, her family has worked to honor her legacy by contributing to meaningful causes, such as a dog park and a NICU patient room named after her. They aim to keep Emma's spirit alive by spreading kindness and raising awareness about unhealthy relationships. 2013, Anthony Blummel was excited when he got back in touch with his biological mother, Keisha Scharberg. But after his relationship with his adoptive parents broke down, he had been asked to leave the home of his adoptive parents, Roger and Melissa Blummel. While Scharberg was very happy about reconnecting with her son, little did she know that this reunion would lead to a dangerous plan driven by Anthony's desire for revenge. Roger and Melissa Blummel got married in the 1990s. Melissa, 53, used to work at a bank as a person who handles money. Later, she got a better job as a vice president there. Roger, 48, used to sell a type of vehicle called a Bobcat. Later on, he started his own business. Even though they really wanted to, Roger and Melissa couldn't have children by themselves. In the year 2001, they decided to adopt kids. A person who helps with adoptions, called a social worker, told them about a lady named Keisha Scharberg. She had 2 boys that she wasn't able to take care of, so she wanted them to have a new family. The Blummels adopted the 2 boys, Tony and his younger brother, Chris. Tony and Chris fit in well with the Blummel family. They became very close and got along like good friends. The boys grew up to be really good at sports and were also known for being very polite. On November 15, 2013, Chris, who was 16 years old at that time, called 911 for help. Chris told the emergency operator that when he got home, he found his parents in their truck and they didn't seem well. He said his dad, Roger, was coughing and his mom, Melissa, was moving her head strangely. Chris said they were alive, but not moving much. The person on the phone asked Chris to gently lay his parents on their backs so he could try to help them by doing CPR, a way to make them breathe again. Chris then noticed that there was a lot of blood in the truck. They also found a small metal piece that's part of a gun, called a shell casing. Both Roger and Melissa had been shot on the right side of their heads. They were quickly taken to the hospital for medical care. The police noticed that Chris was acting oddly. Even though he had witnessed something serious, he didn't seem to show many feelings. The police talked to Chris and asked him what he thought had occurred. Chris said the only person he could imagine might have done something to their parents was his brother Tony. During Tony's last year in high school, there were problems in the Blummel family. Tony regularly used a drug called marijuana, and he didn't like that his parents set rules for him, like a time he had to be home. Melissa, the mom, was also worried about Tony. He had trouble controlling his anger and was physically strong. After finishing high school, Tony got in trouble with the law for driving under the influence, DUI. He had talked before about his desire to join the Air Force, but after getting arrested, his chances of pursuing that dream seemed to vanish. As a result, his parents, the Blummels, decided to tell him that he couldn't live with them anymore. In September of 2013, Tony left to go to California. However, he returned to town later and asked his parents if they would like to have dinner with him. This was on November 15th. But just a few hours after this dinner, they found themselves in a terrible situation. fighting for their lives in the hospital. As a part of the investigation, Chris, Tony's younger brother, was taken to the police station for another interview. However, Chris refused to provide any further information. At the place where the crime happened, the police saw that the door in the garage had been opened by force. Inside the house, things were scattered all around. In the main bedroom, the drawers had been pulled out. The police started to investigate Roger's business matters, thinking that maybe a client was angry with him. However, they later decided that this wasn't the case. In Sedgwick County, Kansas, there had been a few incidents of people breaking into homes. The police wondered if the Blummels had returned home and caught someone trying to break in. Eventually, they determined that this wasn't what had happened either. The police were eager to locate Tony. He had also expressed a desire to talk with them and had come to the police station for an interview. During their investigation, they discovered that Tony had reconnected with his biological mother, Kisha, in the spring of 2013. Kisha had sent messages to both Tony and his younger brother, Chris, but Chris had chosen to keep his distance from her. Tony explained that he had traveled to California in September 2013 and stayed with Kisha, her 7-year-old daughter, and her girlfriend named Sean. He spent a few weeks there, but he started to miss his adoptive family. In October 2013, he came back to Kansas with Kisha and his half-sister. Tony shared that he was staying in a hotel with Kisha and his sister. On November 15th, after having dinner with the Blummels, he returned to the hotel around 8 p.m. Hotel staff confirmed that Tony's story matched the timeline he provided. Similarly, Chris's account was checked and verified. He had been attending a dinner for his wrestling team that evening and arrived home to the shocking discovery that his parents had been shot. Melissa passed away at the hospital on November 16th, while Roger was still battling for his life. On November 17th, a different police department contacted the Sedgwick County Police, letting them know that they had someone with important information about the case. A man named Dalton shared that his friend, Braden Smith, was somehow connected. Dalton had a history of selling guns to people. Braden had sent him a message asking for a gun to do a task. Even though Braden kept asking, Dalton declined because he was trying to move away from that kind of lifestyle. Dalton mentioned that when he heard about the shooting of Roger and Melissa, he strongly suspected Braden's involvement. The police conducted a background check on Braden. They found out that Braden had a reputation for using and selling drugs. He had also been friends with Tony Blummel. They brought him in for questioning on November 19th. Braden didn't waste time and immediately confessed to being part of the situation. He revealed that he was aware of Tony's reconnection with Kisha. According to Braden, Tony had shared a plan with him. The plan involved going to California, staying with Kisha, and growing marijuana legally, as they believed it could bring them profits. Braden and Tony went to California together in September 2013. They lived in a small apartment with Sean for a few weeks until Sean asked them to leave. After that, Braden, Tony, Kisha, and Kisha's daughter returned to Kansas. While they were on their way back, they came up with a dark plan to harm Roger and Melissa. Tony believed that by getting rid of them, he would gain a substantial amount of money that they could use to expand their drug business. However, Braden started to feel unsure about this plan and decided to involve his friend, Drew Ellington. Drew seemed to have aspirations of becoming a hitman and agreed to help after Braden offered him $1,000. On November 15th, Braden provided Drew with 2 firearms and explained the plan to him. Braden also confessed to throwing 2 firearms into a pond, but he claimed that neither of these was the weapon used in the murders. The police found the 2 firearms in the pond. One of them was a .25 caliber gun, but it was determined not to be the weapon used in the killings. Drew Ellington was taken into custody. He admitted to being involved, but pointed the blame at Kisha as the one who pulled the trigger. According to Drew, Tony arranged things so that his parents would go out to dinner. This gave Drew and Keisha the opportunity to wait for their return. Around 8:15 p.m., Tony called to let them know his parents would be back soon. They set up the house to make it look like a robbery had taken place. Once Tony's parents came back to the hotel, Keisha concealed the gun by wrapping it in a shirt with long sleeves. She also took Melissa's purse and instructed Drew to get rid of both items. Drew drove to a residential area and disposed of the gun and the purse by tossing them into a creek. It was later confirmed that the gun was the one used in the murders. On November 19th, Drew was officially charged with capital murder and aggravated robbery. Keisha and Tony were both arrested on the same day at the hotel. While Tony admitted his role in the crime, Keisha denied any involvement. Tony was even brought into the room during Keisha's interrogation and affirmed that he had already shared all the information with the police. However, Keisha continued to deny her involvement. It seemed that Keisha had desired an open adoption, but the Blummels had declined. This had left her angry at them for many years. Keisha believed that with Roger and Melissa out of the picture, she might be able to reconnect with Chris as well. Tony found out that he had been removed from his parents' will. He made a comment indicating that their actions had been in vain. Subsequently, Tony, Keisha, and Braden were all taken into custody and charged with capital murder and aggravated robbery. Roger lost his battle with his injuries and passed away on December 21st. On May 15, 2015, Tony and Keisha decided to plead no contest in exchange for a life sentence without the chance of parole. Braden Smith admitted to second-degree murder and was given a prison sentence of 24.5 years. Drew Ellington was found guilty of both first and second-degree murder. He received a life sentence, but there's a possibility he could be considered for parole after serving 25 years and 155 months. Keisha's daughter was placed in foster care. It appears that both Tony and Keisha held a lot of anger towards the Blummels. The Blummels seemed to be caring and affectionate people, both as parents and individuals. The tragic events that unfolded were certainly undeserved. It's likely that the decision to ask Tony to leave their home was a difficult one for the Blummels, but his behavior left them with few options. Looking back, both Tony and Keisha seem to have been skilled at manipulating situations. Unfortunately, their choices led to devastating consequences for everyone involved.
Tonight, a family wants answers after the death of this 41-year-old man. Police say he was found shot in his car in the middle of the day along Anderson Street in Orlando.
This is a heartbreaking story about a shooting that took the life of a man named Eloy Lebron. The police conducted interviews with 2 witnesses, hoping to gather information that would help them solve the case. Unbeknownst to the investigators, they were actually interviewing the individuals responsible for the crime. One of the women, who couldn't control her words, ended up revealing crucial details that ultimately led to their arrest. It was a Thursday evening on July 23, 2020, in Orlando, Florida. The Lebron family received an unexpected knock at their door, only to discover the tragic news. When the police arrived at the scene, they found Eloy Lebron, their son, dead in his car. Earlier that day, Eloy and his friend were driving on West Anderson Street and Jernigan Avenue around 12:30 p.m. Suddenly, a car sped past them and shots were fired from the vehicle. Eloy's friend managed to duck down and avoid getting hurt, but Eloy, who was driving, was struck by the gunfire. The police immediately launched an investigation, starting with interviews of eyewitnesses at the scene. They began by speaking to Eloy's friend, who revealed that the incident happened unexpectedly, catching them off guard. In a matter of moments, their peaceful drive down the street took a terrifying turn. A car pulled up alongside them, and a barrage of bullets rained down. According to Eloy's friend, the shots originated from a 2004 Saturn Ion. As the police spoke to more witnesses, their accounts confirmed that the Saturn was indeed the source of the gunfire. Some witnesses mentioned seeing 2 young girls with guns, while others noted a girl and a boy, with only the boy holding a firearm. Fortunately, a security camera positioned on a nearby street captured the entire incident. The footage revealed that the Saturn was initially driving in the opposite direction of Eloy's car, a Toyota Tacoma. Suddenly, the Saturn executed a sharp U-turn, aggressively following Eloy. The Saturn then accelerated and changed lanes to overtake Eloy's car, unleashing a barrage of gunshots in the process. The video footage also captured the license plate number of the car involved and the person driving it. It turned out to be a woman wearing a white tank top. The following day, law enforcement pulled over a 2004 Saturn Ion with matching plates. Inside the vehicle were a woman, her daughter, and another family member. All 3 women were taken in for questioning. One of the individuals taken in for questioning was 19-year-old Markia Angelia Hamilton. Markia worked at Sonny's, a barbecue restaurant in Orlando, and had an interest in joining the military. When brought into the interrogation room, Markia appeared surprised when told she was being investigated for a murder. She denied any involvement, asking what she had to do with it. During the interrogation, Markia was questioned by 2 detectives, Detective Overfield, who was leading the case, and Detective Sprague, who was assisting him. They apologized for the wait and began gathering preliminary information about Markia. We learned that Markia has a boyfriend named Brandon, and she also has a suspended driver's license. The detectives then swear her in, and the atmosphere in the room noticeably changes. Detective Overfield gets straight to the point and asks Markia about her recent work schedule. She initially says she worked on Wednesday, the day before the incident, from 4 to 9 p.m. However, when questioned about the day of the shooting, Markia corrects herself, stating that she actually worked on Thursday from 4 to 9 p.m. and had Wednesday off. This discrepancy raises suspicion, as it seems odd to forget the day before such a significant event. Markia further explains that she woke up at her boyfriend's house around 12 p.m. on the day in question. Her cousin Sharia, who usually drives her mother's Saturn, picked her up. Markia clarifies that Sharia drives the car more often than she does, as her boyfriend has a car and usually provides transportation for her. Markia gets picked up by her cousin Sharia, and since she needs to be at work by 4 p.m., they decide to kill some time by smoking before her shift. They drive to Molly World, a place located on Jernigan Avenue and West Anderson Street. However, things become a bit unclear from this point. According to Markia, when they arrived in the neighborhood, they noticed a man running down the sidewalk. This caught their attention, and moments later they heard gunshots. They quickly left the area, nearly crashing into a white truck and even driving the wrong way down a one-way street, before eventually reaching Markia's residence a few blocks away. Strangely, she didn't mention where the gunshots came from initially. Markia then proceeds to describe the events that followed. She went to her house, washed her work clothes, smoked at the park, and eventually made her way to work. After work, Sharia picked up Markia and took her to Brandon's house, where they smoked again before returning home. Markia's alibi for Thursday, July 23, 2020, continued to change multiple times during the investigators' questioning. At one point, she claimed that she was actually picked up from work by Sharia's sister, not Sharia herself. She explained that Sharia's sister had gone to the hospital and discovered she was pregnant. This detail seemed significant and difficult to forget. Later, Markia mentioned that she didn't go to her boyfriend's house and instead went straight home with Sharia's sister. The detective speculated that Markia and Sharia may have been passengers in the car, trying to protect the men involved in the shooting. The investigators explored the possibility that someone other than Markia and Sharia were responsible for the crime, but Markia provided limited information. She mentioned names of men she knew, including her own brother and a man named Scotty, who was involved with Sharia and believed to be the father of her child. Detective Sprague asked if Maria or Sharia had been involved in any revenge or conflicts with the men mentioned earlier. Markia denied any involvement and claimed she had nothing to do with their affairs. However, the detective persisted, mentioning that multiple witnesses had seen gunshots coming from their car. It later became clear that the detectives purposely focused on eyewitness reports and not the video evidence that clearly showed Markia and Jaria at the scene with gunshots originating from their car. This tactic was intended to challenge Markia's defense, suggesting that she was lying. Ultimately, when the jury saw the undeniable video footage, it would expose any false stories Markia had concocted and further implicate her in Eloy's murder. Markia continued to deny her involvement multiple times. Detective Sprague informed Markia that multiple witnesses had claimed the shots came from her car, but Markia continued to deny it. She remained strangely calm throughout the interrogation, even when told that someone's life had been taken as a result. Most of the interrogation focused on logistical details such as the streets Markia was on and her destination. However, Markia was uncooperative, claiming she couldn't remember or wasn't paying attention. In the end, with no confession obtained, the detectives concluded the interrogation and took Markia to the shooting scene to verify her whereabouts. Despite being held for nearly 2 hours, Markia still refused to admit her involvement. Later, the investigators managed to locate Jaria and brought her in for questioning. Jaria, also 19 years old and a co-worker at Sonny's, had a boyfriend named Scotty and was confirmed to be pregnant, as mentioned in Markia's earlier testimony. We discovered that Jaria had previously lived in London, England, and faced difficulties transferring her academic credits upon moving to the United States. Consequently, she never completed high school. Furthermore, despite being the driver on the day of the shooting, she technically did not possess a valid driver's license, only holding a learner's permit. Not an ideal situation. During the interrogation, after being sworn in, the detectives informed Jaria that they had already spoken to Markia. They claimed that Markia had made certain statements during their drive to the scene, inadvertently indicating their guilt. Allegedly, Markia admitted that the man they saw running was actually running away from them and had fired back at them with his own gun. When confronted with this accusation, Jaria dismissed it, responding that she never said such a thing. She insisted on sharing her own account, describing how she received a call from Markia while she was at McDonald's and brought food for herself. After picking up her cousin, Jaria, she went to buy groceries, heard gunshots, and left the area. They then proceeded to wash Markia's work clothes before taking her to work. Many details in Jaria's story aligned with Markia's original account, suggesting that they may have coordinated their stories after Markia's release. However, their false alibis were futile, as the detectives already possessed sufficient evidence linking both of them to the crime. Jaria's questioning aimed to uncover the motive behind the shooting. Detective Braggs directly asked if she was a cold-blooded killer, to which Jaria vehemently denied. The detective then explored various scenarios, seeking a potential explanation that would not brand them as ruthless murderers. There were moments when Jaria pleaded and begged the detectives to reveal the truth. Detective Sprague believed that there must have been a motive behind the girl's decision to shoot someone, while Detective Overfield was ready to apprehend them without further consideration. Detective Sprague hoped that if the girls acknowledged extenuating circumstances, they could negotiate a better outcome in court. However, if they remained silent, the police would interpret it as an act of recklessness, potentially resulting in a life sentence, particularly considering Jaria's pregnancy. Detective Sprague made a heartfelt plea for Jaria to confess and share the complete story, but Jaria chose to stay silent. The detectives expressed their shock and horror as neither Markia nor Jaria confessed to their crimes, showed any remorse for Eloy's murder, or mentioned his name. A few months later, on September 15, 2020, a 10-page arrest warrant was filed for Markia by Detective Sprague. Detective Sprague still entertained the possibility that the girls were lying to protect someone else, likely one of their boyfriends. Investigators confirmed that Markia's boyfriend Brandon had an alibi and was not with them during the incident. However, there were suspicions that Sharia's boyfriend Scotty was present, supporting the theory that the girls were not directly involved in firing any weapons or responsible for Eloy's murder. Rather, they might have been trying to shield Scotty. While they could still be held accountable for lying under oath and being accomplices to a homicide, it was a significant distinction from being responsible for first-degree murder. When asked if Scotty was in the car, Markia maintained that it was only her and Jaria. However, she did mention that earlier that day, before she was picked up, Sharia was driving around with Scotty and another man named Reggie. This detail was not initially disclosed by Jaria during her interrogation. During the interview, Detective Sprague began to consider the possibility that the shooter was seated in the front passenger seat, with Markia sitting behind them in the back seat. This could explain why witnesses claim to have seen men in the vehicle. Although Markia initially dismissed this theory, she made a significant slip-up while discussing her tattoos. She tried to argue that she couldn't be the shooter because her arm tattoos would make her easily identifiable. However, when asked about the timing of getting her tattoos, Markia visibly flinched and made a correction. Despite her attempt to use it as evidence of innocence, her mistake became a crucial piece of evidence.
When did you get those?
I had like this a few weeks ago, I think. But, you know what I'm saying?
You didn't have them before.
No, but this right here would identify.
But you didn't have them before.
I had this one before. Yes.
Not when you stuck that one out the window
I didn't
over the
have-
hood of the car. You did not have that.
I did not have this one, no.
Correct. So it wouldn't
My
identify
car-
you.
This
So,
same number was on the one.
What you just did, up over the roof of the car like that, shooting, you did not have that tattoo.
Not only had Markia lied about having the tattoo on her arm, which she had obtained only a few weeks ago, but her hand motion while describing the shooting matched the description given by one of the witnesses. This marked the moment when the detectives' 2 months of hard work finally paid off. After Markia demonstrated how she would have fired the gun, it became a crucial piece of evidence for the detectives. They developed a theory that Markia and Jaria intended to send a message to someone on the street, possibly due to a dispute involving one of their boyfriends or themselves. Their initial intention may not have been to kill, but tragically, an innocent man lost his life, and they were held responsible. The latest update on Markia's case was in March 2021, where she was awaiting a pre-trial hearing. Sources indicate that she has been released on bail. Jaria, on the other hand, was arrested in January 2021 and is also out on bail. As of April 2023, Jaria's case is still ongoing, and a verdict is yet to be reached. This case is far from over, and the motive behind the shooting remains unclear. It is uncertain whether it was a revenge killing or if Eloy had been involved in questionable dealings with their acquaintances. One of the key questions remains: what was the motive behind the shooting? Did Eloy have any connection to Markia or Jaria, or was it a random act of violence? According to Eloy's cousin Williams, there was no known association between Eloy and the girls. He emphasized that Eloy was not just another statistic in the troubling times we live in, but a genuinely good person. Detective Sprague and Overfield were disheartened and frustrated by the cavalier attitudes displayed by Markia and Jaria during their interrogations. It is truly unsettling how heartless these girls appeared, as they never acknowledged their involvement in Eloy's tragic fate. Even now, as the case continues, new evidence could surface, but based on the current footage and their careless behavior during the homicide investigation, Markia and Jaria's future looks grim.
You left her to die, brutally, on a bathroom
I did
floor.
not murder anyone.
How does
Please
that
stop
feel?
accusing me of this.
Just tell me how that feels.
Please fingerprint me. Please fingerprint me. Why are you so
Don't tell me
angry?
how to do my job.
I haven't done anything to you.
You've come in here, tried to fucking act like you're so goddamn smart.
I fucking hate you fucking people. Oh, you people fucking suck.
A tale hidden behind the walls of a seemingly normal household. But little did the family know that the daughter was prepared to inflict absolute horror on her family.
Just into 7 News, formal murder charges and crime of violence against this woman, Isabella Guzman. She's accused of stabbing her mother 79 times.
When Isabella Guzman was just 18 years old, she committed a crime that will change her family life forever. Her family was shocked because, even though she had some behavior problems as a child, they had always known her as a sweet and good-hearted person. Isabella also became a celebrity on TikTok and other social media platforms, but for all the wrong reasons. A video from her 2013 court hearing resurfaced and became popular on TikTok, which led to a confusing and unexpected fan base for her. This case has been covered a lot previously and has been famous on the internet for a while, but in this video, you will find some unseen information so far. Isabella Guzman began showing behavior problems when she was quite young. Her mother, Yun Mi Hoi, became worried and sent her to live with her biological father, Robert Guzman. This happened when Isabella was just 7 years old, but eventually Isabella moved back in with her mother later on. However, her difficulties continued into her teenage years, and she eventually dropped out of high school. Isabella also said she had been mistreated by her parents for many years, especially after she left their religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, when she was 14. Her stepfather was an elder in the congregation, and he, along with his wife and Isabella, would often be seen in study groups. Isabella's parents were very strict with her about her religious studies, that often Isabella would run away and hide. But the constant pressure about the religion would only worsen after she left the religion, causing her to be traumatized. In August 2013, things got worse between Isabella Guzman and her mother. According to her stepfather, Ryan Hoi, Isabella started behaving in a more threatening and disrespectful way towards her mother. On Tuesday, August 27th, they had a particularly nasty argument that ended with Isabella spitting in her mother's face and even going as far as cursing her. The next morning, Yun Mi Hoi, Isabella's mother, received an alarming email from her daughter with the message, "You will pay." Terrified by this, she called the police. They came to the house and spoke with Isabella, telling her that her mother could legally ask her to leave if she didn't start showing respect and following her rules. Yun Mi Hoi also called Isabella's biological father, Robert Guzman, and asked him to come over and talk to her. He arrived at the house that evening and tried to have a conversation with Isabella about respecting her parents. He thought they had made progress, but tragically just hours later, he would find out that their talk had not made any difference. On the night of August 28, 2013, Yun Mi Hoi came home from work around 9:30 p.m. She asked where Isabella was, and Roy answered that she was somewhere in the house, but he didn't know where. Moments after she told her husband that she was going upstairs to take a shower and that they would take a walk after the shower, Roy, while waiting for Yun Mi Hoi, started eating dinner, not knowing that the most horrible act you can imagine was about to happen just a few meters above him. He suddenly heard a loud noise, followed by horrifying screams of the voice he loved. Ryan Hoi hurried upstairs. When he was running towards the screams, he arrived just in time to see Isabella Guzman closing the bathroom door forcefully. He tried to open it, but Guzman had locked it and was pushing against the other side. When he noticed blood coming out from under the door, he rushed back downstairs to call 911. Upon his return, Ryan Hoi heard his wife say the word Jehovah, and then he saw Guzman coming out of the bathroom with a bloody knife. According to the Huffington Post, Ryan mentioned that Guzman didn't say anything to him and didn't even look at him as she walked past, just staring straight ahead. He entered the bathroom and discovered Yun Mi Hoi lying on the floor without any clothes, and there was a baseball bat nearby. She had been brutally stabbed multiple times. He attempted to revive her, but she had already passed away. Investigators later determined that her throat had been cut and she had suffered at least 79 stab wounds on her head, neck, and body. By the time the police arrived, Isabella Guzman had already left the scene. They quickly began searching for her, warning the public that she was armed and dangerous. The next afternoon, officers found her in a nearby parking garage, still wearing her pink sports bra and turquoise shorts, which were covered in her mother's blood. Isabella's interview was maybe even more disturbing than her actual murder. Even though the investigators were bad at their job and very unprofessional, they also lost their temper multiple times and let Isabella get under their skin.
Why are you so
Don't tell me how to do my job.
I haven't done anything to you.
You've come in here tried to fucking act like you're so goddamn smart.
But how could a teenage girl who just turned 18 do that? At first, Isabella denied that she was Isabella and that they got her mixed up.
Does that make any goddamn sense to you?
Isabella. Stop calling me Isabella.
That's your name.
No, it's not.
She claimed her name was Samantha Gonzalez and that she was on her way to meet her boyfriend when she was picked up. Isabella also claimed that she was 15 years old. Many things are inconsistent in her story, and even though the detectives didn't believe her at all, she never dropped the act until the very end.
Fingerprint me, please. Fingerprint me. I will show you that I am not this freaky, horrible person. I want to meet my boyfriend. He's probably worried about me.
You aren't going to meet anybody.
I wish you could help us just make sense, that's all.
When you prove that I am not her, I'll be able to go.
During the interview, Isabella mentioned that she was picked up from the garage where she was just casually walking. But what Isabella didn't mention was that she wasn't just casually walking in the parking garage. She was actually hiding there. Moreover, when the police found her, they also discovered various things related to the serious crime that Isabella didn't manage to hide.
Most people say you're mean and they don't like you.
I guess she's a mean person then.
No, you're the mean person.
I'm not a mean person.
You're not insane. You're a mean person.
I'm not a mean person.
And you're a liar.
But let's forget what we know about Isabella and try to understand her as a person more. Isabella doesn't like it when people call her mean because, like most people, she wants to be liked and not thought of as mean. The detectives were trying to understand why Isabella would commit such a brutal act against her own mother.
You're gonna bully me into admitting what you want me to pretend to be.
I suspect we're probably not. I mean, that's a decision you have to make in your own head. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're 18 years of age. You understand why you're here. You know what you've done. We've given you an opportunity to talk about what you've done.
The detectives have a lot of evidence against Isabella, but they still want to get her to confess and find out the motive and the reason for the murder. If we go back to the moment when Isabella was caught, she was found inside a blue Jeep Wrangler in a parking garage on South Parker Road. What made it even more suspicious were the things lying outside the car, like a backpack and clothes. The vehicle actually belonged to a company that offers car services, and one of their employees called the police as soon as they saw the teenager. During the time that Isabella was interviewed, another separate interview was being held with her stepfather. He explained how difficult it was raising Isabella and that she was sent to her biological father and his new wife, but she was being aggressive to them as well.
She went to a psychiatrist for maybe a month, and the psychiatrist said, no, she's fine. She's just a typical girl.
How long ago was that?
That's been maybe 2-3 years ago, something like that.
So today, after the police come out and speak with her, what was her attitude or her demeanor after that contact with the officers?
She seemed okay. She was friendly. Her dad gave her a big hug, but I don't think she was very happy that her mom called the police.
Obviously, the psychiatrist didn't do a very good job, but sometimes people like her can hide their state very well. As stated in a Medical News Today article, Childhood Trauma and Schizophrenia, research indicates that schizophrenia results from a combination of genetic and environmental factors that can lead to abnormal brain development. For individuals with these risk factors, severe life events, trauma, abuse, or neglect can potentially trigger the condition. And as we've seen before, Isabella seemed to be very traumatized by her parents because of their religion. But let's get back to the storyline. After running away from the place, Isabella went to the H Mart grocery store. Her messy appearance and bloody clothes attracted attention. A kind woman felt sorry for her, bought her some things, and even gave Isabella her phone number in case she needed more help.
And what did you tell her?
What do you mean, what did I tell her?
What did you tell her? Because we're going to call her and talk to her. What story did you tell her?
Truth.
What did you tell her?
She's Korean. She doesn't even speak any English.
We have interpreters. What did she say? What did you tell her?
I told her the truth.
What did you say?
Exactly the same thing that I told you.
During the interview, the detective asked an intriguing question about who her parents were, if she really was Samantha.
What's your father's name?
I don't really know. Honestly, my mom's kind of a crazy bitch and whores around a lot.
Okay.
She hates me because I'm an illegitimate child.
Okay, so...
All I know is that my dad's Mexican. That's why my last name is Gonzalez.
Isabella also lied about her imaginary parents. When asked about her mother, Isabella said her mother's name is Sabrina Hicks and that she lives at 2657 South Jamaica Circle in Cincinnati, Ohio. However, this address doesn't exist in Ohio. Instead, there is a 26 South Jamaica Court in Aurora, Colorado, which happens to be right across the street from Isabella's home. But this was just one of many strange things she would say. During the autopsy, it was found that her mother had suffered 31 stab wounds to the face and 48 stab wounds to the neck, totaling 79 wounds.
We don't even need your DNA to prove anything.
Yeah, you do.
No, we don't. We don't need anything.
I watch Forensic Files. You can't lie to me about
That's a
everything.
TV show, you idiot.
So what do you
That's
mean?
a TV show. Do you believe everything they put on TV is real? How stupid are you?
I thought it was
Honest
real.
to God. How stupid are you?
Supposed to be real.
You're gonna go off some TV show. You're gonna put your life.
The lack of competency of the detectives during this interview is completely unreal. With a competent lawyer, Isabella could have a case of verbal abuse. But watch what happens next.
Who's that? That's my baby. Okay.
Sir, do you recognize this?
Who are you?
Hey, Roger, why don't you come on back out here for a second? Do you recognize her? Yeah, she's my daughter.
What's her name?
Isabella.
Isabella. What's her last name?
Guzman.
Isabella Guzman. Okay. This photograph here, is that photograph? Is that your daughter there?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is your daughter here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and we'll sit back here and then we'll see about coming back with the phone. Okay? Falling back there. Thanks.
Is he insane? Does she have like a crazy family? Like a completely crazy family? Is that why she's psychotic and killed her mom? My name is Samantha. Who is that man?
The police brought Isabella's father into the interrogation room to confirm her identity. It's difficult to determine if Isabella genuinely believes her stories or if she's intentionally making things up and lying. However, when someone is pretending, especially adolescents, they usually can't keep up the lie for long. It might be hard to believe, but it's likely that she genuinely believes in her delusions. Over the course of the whole interview, Isabella claimed to have a boyfriend named Gabriel waiting for her. Gabriel turned out to be a made-up person, but Isabella did have a boyfriend or an ex-boyfriend. Detectives spoke with a 22-year-old named Ilya Abramov, also known as Tony, who was just as shocked by the terrible crime. What authorities didn't anticipate was that Tony might have his own secret involving 18-year-old Isabella. Apparently, their relationship had ended a little over a week before Yumi's death, after being together for 3 years. But this wasn't the last time they saw each other. Tony says that a couple of days before August 28th, he went to Isabella's house to return some of her things. When Isabella opened the door, she was very angry and tried to attack him with a golf club, although it's unclear if Tony got hurt. The reason they broke up was because Isabella believed Tony was cheating on her with their friend Kathy, although he denies it ever happened. Isabella was very upset about this. On the day of her arraignment hearing on September 5th, 2013, Guzman had to be forcibly removed from her cell. When she finally appeared in court, she made unusual facial expressions at the camera, smirking and pointing at her eyes, according to CNN. Isabella Guzman said she didn't do anything wrong because she was not in her right mind. A doctor said she had schizophrenia, which made her believe things that weren't true for a long time. She didn't even realize she was hurting her mother because she thought she was saving the world by hurting someone named Cecilia. The district attorney, George Brochler, explained that we usually punish people who do bad things when they know it's wrong and could have chosen differently. But in this case, he believed that Isabella Guzman didn't understand right from wrong because of her serious mental illness, which caused her to hear and see things that weren't real. The judge agreed with Isabella's plea of not guilty because of her mental illness. He sent her to a mental health facility in Colorado called the Colorado Mental Health Institute in Pueblo. He ordered her to stay there until she was no longer a danger to herself or her community. Isabella Guzman didn't know that her court appearance would make her famous on the internet. In 2020, many people on TikTok started sharing videos from Isabella Guzman's court appearance in 2013. Some of these videos used a popular song by Ava Max called Sweet But Psycho as background music. Others tried to copy the strange facial expressions Isabella made during the court hearing. As a result, Isabella Guzman became popular on the internet and gained a group of fans. People in the comments on these videos said she looked pretty and believed she must have had a good reason for what she did to her mother. She was still in a mental health institution where she was getting treatment and trying different medications for her schizophrenia, a mental illness. In November 2020, she asked the court to let her leave the institution, saying she was no longer a danger to others.
I was not myself when I did that, and I have since been restored to full health.
In June 2021, the court allowed Isabella Guzman to leave the hospital for therapy sessions. Despite her troubled relationship with her mother, she expressed regret for what happened on August 28, 2013, saying, "If I could change it or take it back, I would."